Hey, Kyle.
Can you hear me okay?
I gotcha.
Cool.
Here. All right. Nice to meet a Twitter person in person, on video, on
Yeah.
Skype, on Zoom, on whatever.
Yeah.
How's it?
Nice to get to know you a little bit.
Well, the floor is yours. Why don't you give me a little bit of background on what you're trying to do, and I'll
So,
see what I can do to help.
yeah. So I want to start making stuff for kind of the board game community. I think that's a pretty good niche that hasn't been tapped into enough. And so I think there's kind of a lot of like accessories and stuff because I don't feel quite smart enough to start designing board games. But I think there's plenty of space for storage, for travel, transport, presentation of like dice sets, stuff like that, that just hasn't been touched. And
Okay.
I think I've got some ideas for for getting in there. I've got a few prototypes going on, and at some
Okay.
point I want to get going on that. But it's like, I've been working trying to play the corporate game and just like, what, I'm done with this. So it's time to do my
I
own thing.
can I can appreciate that, and how scary it feels. And
Yeah.
I've done two major leaps and two major career changes in my life, so I know doubly well what it feels like. Um, I don't know a whole lot about that particular space, but it does sound, just anecdotally from what I see, it sounds like a good niche to be in. Like, have you identified like kind of who the big players are, like what the biggest games or the most popular games or where the biggest opportunities might be?
Not terribly. Right now I'm trying to do stuff for some popular games that I already have, and
Mhm.
then my plan is to try and reach out to some of the small business board game resellers that we have here in Washington, and see
Mhm.
if I can work with them on kind of like trying to resell my products there as just kind of like really like small numbers, so it's not a massive like loss or anything on their side. And also get like sales, if I can, sales figures from them for like, hey, what games do you have that are selling really well? What can we do to like try and improve the experience for players of these?
It's a good idea. Um, Sorry, I'm jotting some stuff down as I'm thinking of it. So, um, okay, so you've found. I mean, what sounds awesome to me is that you found a good niche. It doesn't sound like you're aware of any competition in the space. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen people print little figurines and things like that, but is anybody
Yeah,
doing
like the
this?
D&D characters is like such a crowded space to try and jump into.
Okay.
That's just not where I want to touch. I want to more touch on um, accessories for like the user experience of like playing the games and handling the games.
Okay. Okay. Good. So I mean, I think you've got a sense of like what your point of differentiation is going to be, like what's going to make you competitive. Are you feeling like there's a way for you to, I don't want to say dip your toe in, but it's like what's your mindset in terms of the process? I mean, you said you're doing the corporate thing. I mean, are you thinking about just like cutting the cord and going full at it, or are you kind of dipping your
So,
toe in some regard?
I mean, I'll try and do the crash course explanation. I've been with CarMax for 3 years now, a little bit over 3 years, and they're a fine company to work for. I just like kept running out of like options with them for like, well, I can climb the corporate ladder this way, I can do this, I can do that, and then it's just kind of like, no, I don't want to be like constantly customer facing. I don't want to be
Mhm.
on this exact side. I don't want to be on that exact side of it. And then just like continuing to feel unfulfilled, like creatively, is just had been eating away at me for the last few years. And so we
Hmm.
like went into furlough, and when COVID first hit, and by around that time, like I was getting like a backup camera installed on my car, and uh, I had like the camera they installed like pointed straight down at the bumper, not like backup camera backup view. And I'm like, can you guys like do this better? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, how about I design and 3D print a part to fix this like angle problem. If I give you that part, will you like fix it? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so I got off that phone call with them. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna buy a 3D printer now. Like completely out of spite. And they did it, and that was just kind of like the jumping point for me to like start like taking things a little bit more seriously with it. And then I had some like success when we went into furlough, and I was just like I was just like, hey, I have an idea for like earrings, and so I just sold them on Etsy, and made like $1,000 out of like some earring loops and like a spool of blue filament.
That's great.
And so that was like, hey, if I can actually like try and capture a market more that I want to get into rather than just like a bullshit idea, like I could actually like do this more seriously. And then it's like we came out of furlough, and it's like, keep doing this because it was paying me. And then just like in the last couple weeks here, there was like a management job, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I actually like have the skills, and I could like start fixing stuff and like really make an impact here with CarMax. And so I applied for that, and they're like, yeah, you did great. You're number 2 on our list. And they hired the number 1. I'm like, cool. Hey, manager, I'm going down to part-time starting in April. And I'm like, I'm going to start doing my own stuff. So.
How old are you, Kyle?
I will be 25 this year.
Okay, so you're young. You got a lot of road ahead of you still. And then is this your first major job? Like did you go to school? Give me sort of your background?
I went to technical college for broadcast engineering. And so I have a little bit of like electronics repair, some video editing, television and movie production skills, audio mastering, live production. We did live shows. We were like partnered with our local PBS station, and I even like got to work at the like local minor league baseball team and like produce games for them and stuff too. So that was kind of the background, and then I finished with that like associate's degree education. They're like, yeah, so if you want to like take this more seriously, you need to like go and get more schooling. And I'm kind of like, I don't know about this. And so that's been like a really great skill set to have. And then it wasn't college, but when I was in high school, I took it was just a design course, but they had like CAD equipment. We had a CNC mill and like vinyl cutters, and so that was like really my introduction to like modeling and design and stuff. And our teacher was just like this old guy that was like fed up with working at the school, and so he's like, yeah, here's like the website for like all of the coursework, just like turn it in whenever. And so I finished like a semester of coursework in like 2 weeks, and then had the whole semester to just like screw around CAD modeling and like CNCing stuff. And so that kind of
amazing what you can.
Yeah,
amazing what you can get done when you're passionate about it. That's awesome.
Yeah, some like love of doing this work, and
okay,
can actually like come back to this now and take it more seriously.
Yeah. So tell me what it is that. Well, first of all, listen. What is it that you'd hope to get out of this conversation, and what's success to you in terms of your next steps? Like,
I mean,
what
I
are you
don't
hoping to
know.
glean?
So I don't know entirely. I'd watched your podcast with the one from like early January with 3D Musketeers, and so I had put down a few questions here if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, if you want to do that, that's fine.
So I'm just kind of like, because I had written stuff down before, and then like watching that answered a few things. So you briefly in that podcast, you touched a little bit on a lot of your business was just like bootstrapped entirely. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So this is the second. Well, this is the third business I've actually run. The first one being I had a very early on YouTube channel with a friend of mine, and then I was a web developer for 20 years doing freelance web design. So it was a business, but it was just me and nothing like what we're doing now in terms of I didn't have employees in my payroll. I was working out of home office, that kind of thing. So when I got to this, I knew enough about the background of the mechanics of how I wanted to structure the business and all that. And when I'd started off with Repkord, it was originally kind of like a side hustle, not too dissimilar to what you're doing, where I was still doing my web development and stuff like that. And so I just kind of invested some money that I had from my other job into kind of slowly growing this. And then it wasn't until about really probably about 2 years ago, year and a half, like after kind of the first wave of COVID stuff, and we did Shields Up and all of that, that I like got the actual shop space, moved everything out of the garage. So I'd already kind of architected the brand and some of the product as like, stuff that I was selling on Amazon and filament and things like that, that I would just kind of chip away and just buy stuff as I had time and energy to do it. And then there was 2 different times where I said, okay, I need to like kind of seed, some money. So the first time I put 20 grand in, and then the second time I put like another 50 in. And again, that's just kind of working out of my own savings. I briefly had, I guess, a partner in that, Travis, he goes by A-Pyro Design. Like he and I were sitting down and we kind of came up with the concept of the rep box, and he was helping me with production for a while and stuff like that. But they never invested any kind of money and stuff like that. And we just kind of ended up working out where, we'd split profits and stuff like that. But as far as all the funding has gone and the ownership of the business, that's always been mine, just as I've just kind of continually just reinvested over the last almost 6 years now. Started in 2016. So April will be 6 years for Repkord.
Yeah, because that's kind of the thing that like scares me a little bit is like, I don't have a ton of like savings to fall back on or like throw into the business, but at the same time, like I've been buying printers and like infrastructure and so like the second room in my apartment is just like printers and maker space for me. I'm running an office out of my living room, and so it's like, I'm kind of like having to like split that time of like, I still got to pay rent and
sure
buy food, and so it's kind of like I'm transitioning like jobs in that sense. I'm gonna take over my dad's business here. He's been doing window washing for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like retirement point, and he's like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, okay. So I'm like cutting back with CarMax to take that over. So that'll become like the more main source of income because that pays better for less time.
Yeah.
Than just, yeah. So that's kind of like, that's going to meet the bills. And then it's like, I want to start like putting more time into this as a part-time thing to like go from there, if that makes sense.
No, it's good. And I appreciate the real talk around it because like at the end of the day, you're going to have bills to pay and all that stuff. Like to make things extra scary for me, I have 3 kids. And so, and a mortgage and like probably substantially more, expense to have to cover on a regular basis. And so, it's totly different calculus, when I was younger and wasn't married and doing all that versus now. But first of all, I will disclaim that, my path is not everyone's path. Like there's certainly opportunities to do, write up a business plan, pitch VCs, like that kind of stuff. I will say, having kind of gone down that road as well, that comes with a whole different set of strengths or stresses and potentials for pitfalls for failure. And obviously you're going to have less ownership and less potential control. For something like what it sounds like you're starting, I think bootstrapping really is the only way. You can always go back if you find that you're getting traction. Like there is no rule that says that you can't go for investment later on, that you can't, rebrand. But that's really the key is getting to sustainability first, right? So you know what you have to make to pay your bills and stuff like that. And in an ideal world, you wouldn't want to have this other job that feels like, this is really, I need to do this because I have to pay the bills, but it's not really what I want to be doing. I mean, you seem, you're saying the same thing. Every maker I talk to is just like, you want to do the things that you're excited about and you're passionate about. Like, you want to, you feel that creativity.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the realities of running a business are there's so much in the day to day that oftentimes, has to get done in order to operate the business that pull away from that. So you have to give yourself, reward yourself with the creativity as the win for, a job well done. And a lot of that job well done means making sure, you're making that money. If it's just you, you have to be the one that's selling. You have to be the one that's creating the product. You have to be doing the shipping and the packaging and, everything. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And, I'm not telling you anything you probably don't already know. And I'm not trying to get down on you, but when you think about, what it actually means and where success is, like, you really need to think about how you're going to get to a point. So the first step is, I would say, figure out how you can get the business to the point where you don't need the window washing anymore. If that's what you want. I mean
that would be amazing to get to that goal right now, but
right.
it feels really foolish to just try and put all my eggs in that basket right now.
I'm not an all eggs in one basket kind of person too. So were it not for the fact that I had some savings to rely upon and all that stuff, your trade-off is if you don't have the savings to pull from, it's hours, so you're going to be, you're going to be doing the day job, and then you're going to be committing regular time. And it's really, there's a huge discipline aspect. And I don't know, not knowing you, like what your work ethic is and your personal discipline is, but it's like, if you're going to bootstrap and you don't have the cash, then are you prepared to put in the hours that it's going to take to get to there? And only you really know that. I think when everybody's getting started, you're optimistic and thinking of that, but you really have, I can't overstate how important the organization and the commitment aspect is, so I'm a big fan of like writing down, goals. And so I don't, you could do a business plan, you can do all that stuff. A lot of the things you were talking about, like seeing online that are telling you like, oh, you should do this. And, I went back to school to get an MBA. You don't need that stuff, but you do need to have some direction and some ability to execute. Bootstrapping is not for the faint of heart. Neither is venture capital, for that matter, because now you're stressed out about. So say it's not venture capital. Say it's angel money. Say it's like you borrowed money from your dad. I actually borrowed some money from my parents at one point too, that I've luckily since paid off. But very common other way to do it. You can always get bank loans. There's other ways to get funding. But the pressure of, man, I got to pay this loan back, and then I still got to pay my bills and feed myself. So you have to be scrappy. You really have to think about, how can I do more with less, and how can I, get those wins up. My advice for people starting off is really like, go where the dollars are. And by that, I mean, I think you have a great idea for a niche that has some opportunity in it. There's going to be the games that you already have that that I think you can create. And I think that's a good starting point, because you have to build a brand and a reputation, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to realize too really quickly that it's a real grind. The tighter the niche is, the more the grind is going to be, right? Because that's less customers, less eyes on the brand and the product. And so if you can identify a game that has, so like, for example, like, and this has been done, so this is probably not a good idea, but think of something as big as Catan, right? Like, people have printed all kinds of different tiles and stuff for that or whatever, but that's a volume product, right? Like, identify like who the major players are and see if you can find an opportunity or a niche in there where you can get as many eyes, and then make sure that you're doing the photos, the videos, like the social media is truly and honestly where your brand will live and die in terms of like building that reputational value, for yourself. But you got to do a website. You're going to have to do, there's a lot of little things along the way before you're even be off the ground, right? So, and I feel like I'm looking at you, and I don't want to discourage you.
No,
like I really,
it's like there's a part of this that like I know all of this, and at the same time, it's kind of like trying to just like it's not. I can't just like do one thing. I have to do all of this, and attacking that logistics is a little bit of a handful to start with.
100%, man. There's some dominoes that have to fall, right? And that's where, like I said, a little organization, a little kind of like mapping it out where you want to be, can have. Don't spend, days and days and days doing it. Just kind of, jot down some. I don't know if you have I get some zen out of going for a run in the morning, and that's like kind of when my neurons start firing. And so I'll usually do that, and I'll kind of sit down and I'll kind of jot down some goals for the day or whatever it is, whatever time where you feel the most focused and able to just kind of do a little bit of mindfulness around it will absolutely pay dividends. But you got to do it, because you're never going to know what you're actually moving toward if you're just constantly like, oh, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. You can't take the shotgun approach. At least in my experience. I mean, you could get lucky. You could take a shotgun approach and then find, and that's the beauty of the space that we're in, that you can and need to be able to pivot. Like you may find that the first 3 things you tried don't really gain traction, but the 4th one does, and that's okay. But it's going to take a little bit of time, to get there. You're not going to have overnight, like, oh my God, I need to order these things right now, especially when it comes to like product based. It's all about shouting above the noise. Like everybody's talking about everything that they're doing. Like, how do you shout over everyone else, right? How do you get noticed? That's a huge digression. I'm sorry from your
No, it's fine. I was kind of gonna work towards that anyway with one of my questions, because you have done like some marketing, but it's like you have to play the social media game. Have you done stuff with influencers like that? Honestly, like starting out, that feels like a waste of money at some point, but is that
is it so yes, absolutely, and yes, influencer marketing works. I think I was lucky enough, and I was in this space. So for example, in the 3D printing space, like I've been making a name for myself since day one, just participating on Twitter, on social media. And I've been lucky enough that I've made friends with Joel and Tom and a lot of the other people and 3D Maker Group and all that stuff. So, over time, my either doing videos with Joel or having conversations with various, other influencers, doing these streams and these conversations has built the reputation to the point where, people are approaching me more and asking if I want to do this and stuff. And that is not a, that's a long tail thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but it's like you're investing in kind of the long return, the long game. But, it really wasn't until, we got picked up by Joel on a couple of his videos. And then that gave me enough reputation to eventually get in front of Prusa. And Prusa is the big fish that, for me, when I was like, okay, well, what's the printer that's priced right, that the majority of people are buying, and like, how do I target that audience and that price point? Yeah. And so, my thinking is like, who's that equivalent in the gaming world, if there is one? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
But so then it's like, I think one of the things you talked about in the podcast episode was you went to, was it East Coast Rep and kind of like got traction word of mouth there. Like, like, I don't know, was it like a year and a half ago, like I could not stop seeing like web ads for like the Palette 2, but like I never see a web ad for like Repbox.
I don't believe in web advertising anymore. And honestly, having built plenty of them over the course of the year, I don't believe that mechanism is effective. So because I'm bootstrapped, I'm constantly looking like, what's my best bang for my buck? And I've identified like, you know what, I'm better off, sponsoring charity streams and stuff like that. So the brand is out in front of like the influencer marketing piece is big, and then investing in going to the trade shows, the rep, Midwest Rap Festival, East Coast, maker fairs, that stuff. I know that that's in a wonky space right now because of COVID and stuff, but that's the face time.
You're putting more time into the community more than anything for maintaining the reputation.
Well, and here's the thing is you have to have both that community reputation, but when you establish that community reputation, like that's also when you start to get the attention of the corporate and the industry, like you get some legitimacy in there. And so like there's no way I would have gotten in front of like Prusa or 3D Jake or any of my distributors until they were constantly seeing my brand everywhere as well. And they're like, oh, I guess this is something people want. We should pick this guy up.
Yeah.
So, but that took years. So, that's an investment. That said, like I do think it is worth, and one of my initiatives for this year is to double down on all my, social media stuff in terms of like my next hire. I really want my next hire to be like a digital guru that's not only going to be responsible for making sure the website stays fresh, but then also, just like literally walking through here with a camera, recording all the cool stuff we're doing and making sure it's getting out to, YouTube and TikTok and Twitter and all that stuff.
How do you calculate your own value in time?
That's a tough one, man. That is a great question. And it is I think I mentioned this in that stream I did with Grant, that is probably one of the big pitfalls of anybody that's getting started, in that they're not factoring that into the calculus, right? They're not factoring in what they're worth and what their time is.
Yeah.
I think that the best starting approach for, I'm gonna work backwards into that answer, and the way I'm gonna do that is, so there's what you should be worth. Is like, first of all, what position do you want to be in this company? Are you the CEO? Are you the CTO? Are you like, if you were to pause and think about, try to imagine in 10 years time, like you've been successful, like the thing that you want to be doing. If it's the creative, that's fantastic. A lot of people realize like, I want to do the creative stuff. And so they hire, somebody to manage the books and the finances and the sales and all that stuff. So you have to kind of look at that in terms of where that is. And then, what does a person that's in an established business, that person, what do they generally get paid? And you can find data on that certainly online. And that would allow you to kind of work backwards into like, okay, well, I want to be making 150,000 a year or whatever sounds, right to you. But when it comes to the product piece, I think the more important thing as you're getting started is understanding your costs of your product. And for that, you need to factor in your time in the cost of the product, right?
Yeah.
And is that kind of what you're getting at too?
Yeah. So let me grab something and show you real quick. So this is like one of the products, and it's got such a like complicated aspect to it. So I really love Scotch and whiskey. So this is a whiskey box that is a dice tower, and the lighting is so weird. But so I've taken like the lid and like put it behind glass, and like that's insert, and so like this is the idea. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback on like people love this, and so like being able to like prototype and go in, this is fantastic. Scotch that comes in a box or a tube gets expensive. And where do I price that? Do I price this just to like pay for the scotch? Do I price this that like this pays for the time as well? Like how do I price this? Can I price this as a sellable item? If I do, how do I buy enough of these damn things to like continue affording that? Because like this was a $50 bottle of scotch. Do I sell this for $50? No, that doesn't make sense, because that doesn't account for like my time of like designing it and going into it. Do I sell it for $100?
Yeah. So
And so
pricing,
I don't even know what like the
yeah.
market is gonna go for. And I'll be right back. So this is my dice tower made of spalted tamarind from Wormwood Gaming. Um, I got this on sale because I know somebody who knows somebody. But on sale, this was like $300. So clearly, there's a market for crazy people like me willing to buy this stuff for far too much money.
Oh
But
yeah.
this isn't like what I'm making here is not like is not like the crafts level of going to all this like leather and woodwork detail.
Right.
And the I don't know if you've seen these guys' stuff, but like this is all magnets. It all comes apart and like folds down.
That's beautiful.
It's such a
I
like
love it.
gorgeous product, and I
Right.
could put myself into severe financial debt buying their stuff.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So, I mean, pricing was the impetus of the whole reason, Grant approached me for
Yeah,
that thing. And I mean, we could go on for days on the subject, but the crux of it is that, to answer your question, generally speaking, no, you don't just price the cost of materials into the thing. You need to think about what it would cost you if you are paying somebody else to make this thing for you. Okay. Like that is your base. That is a baseline. Now, when you're first getting started, like I said in the stream, it's very much like anything else. Like you don't have a reputation. And so you are going to have to compromise on some aspects to get the eyeballs, to your set. So, when I first started with the box, like we kind of took a loss leader approach because we weren't really paying ourselves and just like really priced the thing around more of a materials
yeah,
basis, not a production basis. Over time, the way that I was able to mitigate that was through version releases, like slowly creep that up. Plus, we added on improvement kits and stuff like that had higher margin and stuff. So there are ways, like just because you establish a price, like some of it feels like it's just a shot in the dark. I think I said on that stream, I had a mindset that nobody is ever going to pay more than $100 for one of these. I was totally wrong. But at the time as a maker, I was in the maker mindset thinking I'm competing against people that are thinking that they're going to just, do I make this myself or do I pay to buy one from Twitch? That has since evolved greatly. And the majority of our, sales are more wholesale based now than, direct to customer. And I'm also okay with people saying like, that's ridiculous. Why would I ever pay $160 for that? I can just drill some holes in some Tupperware. And it's like, I don't care about capturing, like those were never my customers to begin with. So a lot of that is thinking about the customers that you want to have. And when you're getting started, you want to have all the customers, right? Because you need all the dollars. But don't, shoot yourself in the foot by, pricing something so low that you're just not, it's not going to do you any good if you're not making any money on it.
yeah.
Now, try to get outside the box and think a little bit more creatively, just because, for in the case of your Scotch box there, the Scotch company is having those boxes made by somebody and they're not paying for the Scotch and stuff in it too. They're probably paying a few bucks, right? And so it's like, you could design. I don't know. I know this is going to get into a weird space, right? Because you've got copyright issues and stuff. Like you can't just rip off some Scotch labels.
Yeah,
design.
No. Last thing I want to do is piss off Scotland and not get any Scotch ever.
Yeah, but I guess my point is like there may be ways to get the package. I mean, it can't hurt to try to reach out to them and say like, can I love collecting the boxes. Can I order boxes? Like, or you know what? I mean, it sounds funny, and this is where I'm saying you got to get outside the box. This kind of deal happens all the time. Licensing deals happen all the time, all throughout this business. Think about like athletic wear, and you're into, I don't know, football or whatever, 49ers, Raiders, A's, they all a company is just paying to license the use of that logo,
Yeah.
there's almost always a dollar figure. Now, whether it's viable for that product, I don't know. But try to think a little bit more outside and think, how do I get away from paying retail pricing? When you're first getting started, you're going to pay more. We talked about this on the stream too. It's almost unfortunate because your greatest savings come when you need it the least once you've established yourself, right? I feel for you, man, because the pricing thing is a source of a lot of stress. It feels like that's validation, and if you price it too high, you're going to get flooded with people being like, "You're an idiot to charge that much," and all that stuff. You have to, first of all, you have to ignore that. You have to know and believe that there are plenty of people out there like you that are willing to pay the money.
Yeah.
If you can get in front of them, and if you can, get them to trust that you know what you're doing and you're making something cool. What else? What other questions do you have for me?
You talked a little bit about on the stream tracking resources with Google Docs, tracking different like business stuff. And so kind of like, is there any like key stuff I should be tracking? And then in the same vein, this is a conversation that I had with my tax lady accountant a while ago. Like, because I was talking to her about like kind of starting this business up because she's done, helping with other businesses. And I had a conversation with her about how do we like keep track of like filament as like a business for like, this is going to be going into parts that you're selling. How do we like keep track of that kind of inventory as like reporting it in taxes?
Mm-hmm. What you're talking about is
on that.
Yeah, so your raw materials are known in the business world as cost of goods materials. So anything that contributes to the cost of making it, whether it's filament, whether it's the packaging oftentimes that goes into the product, all of that stuff is a cost associated with bringing it to market. So you can thankfully with filament, you can very easily get the math in terms of like how much you paid for the filament, how much was used for the product, and then you layer on whatever margin is appropriate. I'm not sure I'm understanding the question in terms of like you want to know like what's the best way to like account for it, or
no
what?
Well, I guess maybe because she wanted to know if it should be something that's handled as like an inventory item, but it's not really an inventory item because it's a raw material.
No, that's exactly right. It's a cost of goods sold, and it's not, you generally you can track inventory, but it's for your internal purposes for purchasing. It's not a traditional inventory item is something that would have like a SKU and is a sellable item oftentimes. My advice would be not to try to start out a little bit more 10,000 foot view and not worry about the minutiae. Like, yes, you're going to need to order filament and all that stuff. And I can appreciate that your accountant is going to have plenty of questions and you're going to have to kind of figure it out as you go. But your real mission to start is sales, is branding and sales. It's establishing your brand and getting a reputation and getting those dollars coming in, because nothing else matters if you can't get paid for this. So you can't, do that. And so that's, it sounds like you've put stuff up in an Etsy store. You've gotten a little taste. You can see that there's potential and stuff like that. But what's the next step? Like I hate to discourage people with Etsy, but the thing I always like to say is like, be better than Etsy.
It's like, it's such a trash platform. I don't want to be on there.
And in a way, it pigeonholes you. You want legitimacy. You want people to understand. Like, so you need to come up with you need to do a logo. You need to have an actual website. You need to have an email address that is not at Gmail, whatever. It needs to be at a proper domain. Okay. So at any point, whether you're reaching out to vendors or you're trying to sell, you are conveying a professionalism so people will respect that. Okay.
Yeah, I've already got like the domain set aside and registered and stuff. So yeah,
I
building that shouldn't be.
I'm a big advocate for. I mean, I use Shopify. I know that it's expensive. It's more expensive than most, but and as a web developer, that was really hard for me too because I was just like, well, I can build a website. The truth is, you don't want to spend any more time than you need to get like find the minimal viable product for getting your product out there and allowing people to buy it.
Yeah.
So don't get wound up in the minutia of like making this whiz bang website. Like people blow so much money trying to build a website when it's really all about selling. Like you can get to making the whiz bang website, and when you have the money to do that, like
yeah,
you should do that. But for right now, I'd say like be better than Etsy and figure out maybe it's a Squarespace, maybe it's one of the other platforms. Like there is no shame in that.
Yeah.
Like pick a template that's already there and just put your logo up there and maybe change a couple colors or whatever. People aren't going to care as much as you think about that.
Yeah, I was looking at Shopify as like the option to start with and then go from there.
I will tell you the things that a lot of people don't tell you, like the advantage of Shopify, especially for tangible product, is the savings on the shipping piece. Like that is worth its weight in gold. That like literally pays for itself. The rates that you get when you're generating your shipping labels to send something off to people are substantially discounted than you would get if you're just going down to the post office or going UPS store or whatever.
I already work with like Shippo and stuff for that kind of piece of it.
You already know that stuff. That's fantastic. I like I said, I leverage it for just how turnkey it's been, and its integration. It's already got a great mobile. It's already got like I just literally don't have to be very hands on with it.
Do you have trouble like getting people to pay like the shipping fees and stuff, or do you find that's just kind of accepted?
I probably get a few emails a week from people saying like your shipping is really expensive. So like I have an abandoned cart email that goes out. There's tons of people that come and put stuff in their cart and then don't convert. It's very common. And so when the email goes out, sometimes people that just says, "Hey, you have something left in your cart. Is there anything we can do?" Sometimes I'll get a reply from people saying it was too expensive to ship. So those people exist, they'll always exist. Typically, they're international customers for me. What I did domestically was the psychological warfare of I added $25 to my price and I offer free shipping because I calculated that the average cost to domestically ship a rep box, just in the case of rep box, there's other stuff I ship, is about $25. So one way or another, there is no such thing as free shipping. It's either rolled into the price or people pay for it. There is, I think, an advantage, and if you have small enough stuff, like your stuff might be small enough where it's perfect.
No, and like selling the earrings, like my average cost of shipping was I think $3.49 or something.
Oh yeah,
it was just a mailer with like some cardboard to make sure it wasn't going to get crushed.
So there's an interesting tidbit in that you want to find product. You might what was your average cost on the earrings? What was the price? Sorry.
It cost like 97 cents to produce them.
Okay, so it cost you 97 cents and you charge what?
I was charging $10 a set.
Okay, so that's a healthy margin. That's fantastic, right? But even with a healthy margin, it's a low dollar product, right?
Yeah.
And so you're in the volume game, okay? And the volume game will kill you when it's just you, or can kill you when it's just you.
Oh, it did. I made the mistake of when I put that up on Etsy, I didn't like put a like cap on how many I had inventory, and so I just woke up to like 30 sales, and I had made like 4 of them at the time, and then I was just like running my one printer overtime and like jamming like buy more printers, buy more Pruses.
So, but then you gotta be careful with that because the trap that a lot of people fall in is like they get something, they see the volume starts to come, and then they try to scale, and then what happens when it falls out of vogue or your printers start to break?
That's what happened.
You're gonna overwhelm yourself, right?
I bought the printers, I was able to make it, and I had traction for that, and then it was kind of like traction just faded away, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not dead in the water here because like I was living at home at the time with my parents and paying nothing in rent. So it's like, hey, I can afford to just buy 4 Pruses. But now it's kind of
Well,
like, all right, at least I have the
always,
infrastructure, you know?
that's a great lesson to learn. You've already invested. You've got the tools.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, but the lesson from this is you need to, one, you always need to be prepared to pivot, and two, like I said, with the mindfulness, sit down and really target. Like you hear about, I don't know if you've read, about writing personas or thinking about who your customer is. So it's what games are the most popular, what competition is already out there, if any. Ideally, you're trying to find, in this Venn diagram, like one where you don't have competitors, it's a popular game, and the price point is such that you're not going to burn yourself out having to sell, because you can easily do the math on 90% margin on your earrings was great, but it's like if you're only making $9 on every sale, how many sales is that to make rent?
Because I was offering free shipping on that, so it's like, well, now I'm losing money on shipping. I'm losing money for all the goddamn Etsy fees, and so I was still making like $4 a set, which great. Okay. So, but it was still like that started to like eat away at it, and it's kind of like, yeah, you know what? I need to get into that side of offering a more expensive product, and doing it on my own terms with my own website.
And if you can still do that, and it can be still small and cheap to ship, that's fantastic, because you'll find if you get successful with this, that your second most expensive cost center is first is going to be labor, second is almost always shipping. Okay, and so when you're doing your calcs on that, it's always going to be you need to take those numbers into effect when you're doing your margin calculations. Like, it's don't get wound up in the material game. It's very easy, like, oh, this it only cost me 90 cents to produce. No, that's 90 cents of material. It sounds like it actually cost you like it was like $6, so your margin was more like 40%, 30%, something like that.
At the end with shipping and everything.
Yeah. So make sure you're thinking about all those things. You're going to have waste. Okay. Like a lot of times people don't account for waste, like prints fail, usually electricity. And don't get too far into the weeds on stuff. I know you can really go far in terms of like, what's my electrical costs? Like, how much is my rent? Like all that stuff. Like, for the most part, start with your main material costs and any labor costs and any shipping costs. Those are going to be like, go 80-20, the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
Like 80%. If you can focus on, 80% of any of these tasks along the way, you're going to get further faster than trying to like master each little thing, because you're going to have a lot, and you've already seen some of it.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, the last question to kind of like wrap this up, I guess. You had talked a little bit about dealing with imposter syndrome for building your business, and I wanted to ask a little bit how you kind of got around that or worked above it, because that's something that I've like absolutely dealt with. I've been fighting depression and anxiety the last like few years, and actually like getting help from doctors and medication has helped, but there's still a part of that that's very real that I have to work around.
Okay, so one, I don't know that I would ever buy that anybody has fully gotten over that. Like, there is always good days and bad days. Yeah. But for me, I would say what has helped the most is a lot of like what I'm doing here and talking to others. Like, one, the understanding and the appreciation that it is very normal, very, very normal, very common. We don't hear about it because people don't share these types of things online, where we get wound up and we measure ourselves based on all the successes that we see on social media. It's a detriment in that regard in a lot of sense, because you feel like everybody else has got their shit together and you don't, and that can't be further from the truth. I'll be 44 next month, and so I'm almost twice as old as you. I've lived a lot of life. I'm not trying to say that I have it all figured out, but the truth is that over time, you have to grow a thick skin. You have to realize you're gonna have bad days, and you're just trying to get to tomorrow. Okay, and that's totally fine. You can, some days you're just like, I'm just having I need a mental health day. Like, I do it still, especially when I have my kids and I have to, be doing with that too. Like, it's just a lot. But it's okay, and everybody goes through it, and it's okay to just say, I'm just going to punt till tomorrow, but get back up again and keep doing it, and find that the community for me is a lot of my therapy in a lot of ways, because I feel like I'm part of something bigger, that I'm interacting with other people. It takes a lot of effort right now because I don't have the same FaceTime events, like the things that would really get me amped up. But find the things that get you amped up and figure out the life hacks in terms of like, making sure you can keep yourself, like for me, like I said, sometimes it's running, a lot of times it's doing these streams. Sometimes I'm just calling, my friends, acquaintances, business contacts or whatever, just to bounce ideas off them. I really wish there was more mentoring resources and stuff like that. I have never been able to find someone that I would consider a mentor. But I think that it's important to make sure that you're talking to people that are walking a similar path, that are in a community, so that you can be more grounded in the reality that everybody is going through it. Does that help?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
And so I guess kind of in tangent with that, what do you define as a successful day for you? I know that's
another day above ground. Another day above ground. A successful day for me. That is variable from day to day, because like I said, I try to be mindful at the beginning of the day, where I write down my goals for the day. I write down what my to-do list, and sometimes the to-do list. So first of all, my to-do list very rarely doesn't end up with more on it than when I started, it seems. But I kind of have a catch-all for like long-term, short-term, and I do that because like it's very cathartic to be able to check a lot of those things off. And so if I can get through my day and feel like I checked off, at least 3 to 5 things, as stupid and insignificant as that probably sounds, like how hard is it to do 3 things? And sometimes there's simple things like refocus the laser or whatever. Like, yeah. I'm doing okay, because the truth is, once the day starts, there's all the things that I don't even know that are going to be coming at me, that are taking up a lot of that time too, that never make it on the list and never get checked off. So even though I only have 3 things that I'm checking off the list, I probably did 23 things that I never added to the list. So I like my checklists. And there's a lot of times I'll beat myself up because I didn't get to the things that I wanted to do. And that's where I'm like, I'll try to do better tomorrow, and try to be okay with it.
Cool. All right. I think that's about everything. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Was this helpful? Like, I really hope it was. And feel free to email me and stuff. Like, I'm not just gonna be like, oh no, you already had your, like, I honestly, like I said, there's value in this for me as well.
Yeah.
And I want other people to succeed. I think this is given that we're all kind of coming from this like 3D printing and making background, I think this is a really interesting challenge. I love seeing people that are creative do the leap into entrepreneurship, because I think it really affords a lot of freedom. Yeah. There's a lot of stress and all that stuff, but like once you get in it and once you get going, the reward of like controlling your own destiny, not having to ask permission to go to a dentist appointment and just like these little minutia, like I, to me, that is the biggest metric. Like if I don't have to go back to work for somebody else, like then that's success enough for me.
3 weeks out because of like how crazy our work is. It's dumb. I don't want to have to live like that.
So it's good, but just be prepared, and if you need to talk some more, like let me know. We can do another one of these if you feel like that it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I wish you the best of luck, and I want you to succeed, and let me know how it's going. Okay.
I will keep you posted. Thanks very much. I really appreciate your time and support on this.
Yeah. Listen, when you get into it, I want to be encouraging. And as you're getting into it, and as you're ready to launch and stuff like that, if you need some signal boost for things or whatever, let me know. I'm happy to help get the word out, with my small following as best I can. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I am. Like I like to say, we're all built on the shoulders of giants. Like were it not for the people that helped support me along the way and get me going. So, don't be afraid to reach out to ask other people to help spread the word, because it really does amplify a lot more than you think. Also, make sure, you were talking about retailers and stuff like that, but make sure you're creating an email list of your own. As much as people don't email and stuff like that, you want to have that core group of people, whether it's go find the forums, go, start to generate a list of who your target customers are and hold that, because you're going to find really quickly that your best customers are your repeat customers. And so make sure, no matter what you do, if you're changing your website and what, always get that download of your customer data and hold on to it. It just amplifies, and you start to hit that, exponential growth once you get it. So that's a lot, man. It's a lot to absorb.
No, it is. It's a road, but I want to take it.
Chin up, man. I wish you all the best, and stay in touch and let me know how it's going. Okay.
I will. Thanks very much.
All right, Kyle. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.